This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alex Masford. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the show. Before I start talking anything sports, I want to remind you all to subscribe to the podcast so you always get those notifications on your phone, laptop, however you may be listening. And you never miss an episode when we release one, so make sure you subscribe to the show. Also, make sure to leave us a 5-star review in the comments. We really appreciate that as well. And also to follow us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We love to interact with you guys on social media, so make sure you give us a follow. Again, whatever platforms you are on social media-wise, we are on as well. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Make sure you give us a follow there so we can interact with you all. Now, we have a fantastic show for you today. Later on in the show, I'm going to be talking about Cam Newton and the Patriots. We're still one of the hottest topics in the NFL. There was a recent clip of Cam Newton sort of describing his emotions and his feelings, replacing Tom Brady and what he could maybe bring to the New England Patriots offense. He was talking with Victor Cruz and Odell Beckham Jr. on maybe an episode of a podcast. I'm not entirely sure, but that clip was on the internet. I'll be talking about that later on in the show. I also want to give you my updated sort of predictions on how I believe the NBA playoffs slash bubble are going to go. I did one of these a few weeks ago, but now that there's been some injuries and some people have backed out of the bubble, specifically with the Lakers, I want to give an updated playoff matchup on how I believe the playoffs and the entirety of the bubble is going to go in the NBA. So that'll be later on in the show, and stick around for the end of the episode. Last week, I think I did my top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. Today, I'm going to be doing my top 10 running backs in the National Football League. Again, running backs I still believe are a really important position in the NFL. Some people say it's sort of a dying breed, but again, my top 10 running backs at the end of the show. So many good backs to choose from. We'll get into all of that at the end of the show, so make sure you stick around for that. Now, I want to start off with the NFL and with America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I was thinking, now that the Dak Prescott thing is over with, we know that he's not getting an extension. He's definitely going to play on the franchise tag this year. Some rumblings about what could happen in the years, coming. I've talked about this on my last episode. I talked all about the Dak Prescott contract situation. But how do people actually think the Cowboys are going to do this season? Now, I said in my prediction video, I think they're going to go 9-7. I think they are going to be second in their division. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs or not. Depends on how the extra playoff spot works in the NFC. I'm not the biggest supporter of Dak Prescott. I don't think he's all that. Again, I put him in the tier of a franchise quarterback, great leader, great intangibles, pretty good talent. I just don't think he elevates the team. I think he's a product of his system. And I just think if everything's not clicking for Dak Prescott, then I don't think he can lead a team to the promised land by himself. He's not the Patrick Mahomes. He's not the Lamar Jackson. He's not the Aaron Rodgers. I put him on the same level as guys, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, a lot of guys like that as well, who of course you can win with. Jared Goff went to a Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo also went to a Super Bowl. But I think we can all agree that the biggest X factor of the 49ers going to the Super Bowl last season wasn't Jimmy Garoppolo. It was Kyle Shanahan, the coach, and I think a lot of the defense. And same thing with the Los Angeles Rams. Todd Gurley had an incredible year that year. Sean McVay obviously won Coach of the Year, I believe. And Jared Goff had a good year in that system, and we've seen what happened when the system doesn't always do great for these players, specifically Jared Goff, and what could happen to Jimmy Garoppolo in the near future. And we've seen, again, from Dak Prescott, what happens when everything's not going right. His second season, he missed the playoffs when Ezekiel Elliott missed, I believe, 4 or 6 games because of a suspension. Without Ezekiel Elliott, the Cowboys missed the playoffs. So can you argue that Dak Prescott isn't even the most important person on the Dallas Cowboys? I would say yes. I think the most important component of the Dallas Cowboys and the reason for all their success, and the reason why they win games, in my opinion, is the trenches, is the offensive line and the run game. If the offensive line and the run game for the Cowboys set the tone early, and they get ahead of the game early, the Cowboys don't play great from behind. When Dak Prescott is forced to make the play, when Dak Prescott is forced to win the game, he crumbles often. We saw it last year, that throw to Michael Gallup. I think it was against the Eagles, I believe. Again, had him, missed it. Similar to what Jimmy Garoppolo did in the Super Bowl. Had a guy wide open, missed it. It's, again, not that they're bad quarterbacks, not that you can't win with them, but guys like Aaron Rodgers, guys like Patrick Mahomes, guys like Tom Brady still to this day, guys like Lamar Jackson, for the most part, I've led everything to believe they don't miss those throws, they don't miss those plays. That's what put them at the best of the best. And again, I think Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. I think he's not a great quarterback. There's a lot of quarterbacks I'd rather have than Dak Prescott, but there's also a ton of quarterbacks in the league that are starting, that are making more money than Dak this year, where I'd rather have Dak Prescott than some of these other guys. But I was trying to scour the internet and see, what do the Dallas Cowboys fans, but also national media people, what do they believe the Dallas Cowboys are going to do? And from everything I can gather, it's kind of split. Some people believe that the Cowboys can go as far as winning the Super Bowl. I'm not just Cowboy fans. There are some other people that believe that the Cowboys are going to make the Super Bowl this season. Everything like that. I disagree. Some people think the Cowboys aren't going to be great. Some people think that, this dark cloud looming over the Cowboys of Dak's contract situation. Again, the players are going to get asked about it every day, because yet again, you never want to have a quarterback playing for a contract that isn't one that's deserving of playing for a contract, if that makes any sense. Dak Prescott, in my opinion, deserves a contract. Don't get me wrong. The same way Kirk Cousins deserved a contract when he was with the Washington Redskins. Again, deserved a contract, but they didn't get it. And now, I don't think it's a similar situation to what it was with Kurt in Washington. Kirk Cousins in Washington, I think, was actually asking for a relatively fair deal. He wasn't asking to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. Washington just couldn't get it done, owner Dan Schneider. And there's a lot of other stuff going on with them as well I won't get into. But with the Cowboys, Dak Prescott was just asking for too much. The Cowboys offered him a contract. Again, I've talked about this before. $35 million a year, over $100 million guaranteed, would place him top 5 in NFL quarterbacks. I think even top 3. That's ridiculous. Dak Prescott does not deserve to make more money than Aaron Rodgers, than Russell Wilson, and he was asking for Patrick Mahomes type money. And I understand, like I talked about in my last episode, I understand where the Dallas Cowboys, and specifically Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, the general manager, came from and not giving him that money. But I don't understand why some people believe that the Cowboys can go farther than they are. And I know I'm not a Cowboys hater. I actually like the Cowboys a lot. I love their brand. I think they're great for the sport. I'm not a Cowboys fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm also not a Cowboys hater. So I don't understand why some people believe and put them in that Super Bowl stratosphere, and some people also put them in like the 6-10, 7-9 stratosphere. I said in my prediction episode that I think they were going to go 9-7, and there's a couple of reasons for that. And I want to start off with a really sort of underlining headline in the NFL that's going on this season. And with everything with coronavirus, how are teams with new head coaches or even new quarterbacks as well going to perform this season? There is not going to be a normal OTA, normal training camp. Preseason has already been cut down 2 games, and a lot of people are speculating that there's going to be no preseason at all. So you're looking at a team with the Dallas Cowboys, as well as many other teams, including in their own division, guys, teams like the Giants, teams like the Dolphins if Tua Tagovailoa starts, teams like the Bengals, teams like the Patriots, who either have a new coach or a new quarterback playing this season, and in some cases, both. Now, this is important because I think these veteran teams who have coaches that have been there for a long time and quarterbacks who have been there for a long time, those quarterback coaching duos that I talked about a couple episodes ago, those teams are going to thrive more than usual. A team, as an example, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, Ben Roethlisberger's been there forever, and so has Mike Tomlin. They know what they're doing. They know their system they're trying to run. The only thing holding them back is that Ben kind of had a year off. And again, they are a veteran team. They know what they're doing. They don't need as much OTAs. They don't need as much training camp, as much preseason, as practices, as some other teams of guys who are trying to learn new systems. Another team that fits into that, is the Saints, Sean Payton, the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, and, John Harbaugh. Guys who have already got that continuity. They have that relationship. They know what system they're running. They know what they're going to do day in, day out. While practice is nice and everything, they don't need as much as these other teams. The Dallas Cowboys fit into the category. They have a new coach. And Mike McCarthy. He is going to run a different system than what Jason Garrett did. One that I think is more, susceptible into a positive or negative way than Dak Prescott. I don't exactly know how Mike McCarthy is going to coach this because, again, we don't have an exact, model for what Mike McCarthy has been coaching for years and years. We know what Bill Belichick's been coaching for years and years, specifically on the defensive side. Andy Reid, Sean Payton. If one of those guys became the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, we know what system that they would try to implement in the game for the Cowboys. But with Mike McCarthy, he's more of a wild card, only because his system, for a large part, was overshadowed by Aaron Rodgers' talent. Now, we can get into the debate of who was it. Was Mike McCarthy a good head coach for Aaron Rodgers? Their relationship was obviously not great towards the end of it. I believe that Mike McCarthy was a good head coach. I don't think you can win a Super Bowl with a poor head coach. I really don't. They won a Super Bowl together, him and Aaron Rodgers. I obviously think Aaron Rodgers greatly helped Mike McCarthy, maybe more than Mike McCarthy helped Aaron Rodgers. But is that the system that he's going to try and run with, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys? Is that going to happen? Because, Aaron Rodgers kind of was like a freelancer, made the play up, ran off script, everything like that, make those wild throws, those wild plays, extend the pocket. Well, Dak Prescott can do some of those things to extend the pocket. It's going off script that I have trouble with Dak Prescott. When the play breaks down, where do you find the open guy? Do you find your third, fourth, maybe even fifth read? Do you make something out of nothing like Aaron Rodgers had done for years and years in Green Bay and still continues to do? I don't trust Dak Prescott to do that. So I believe that Mike McCarthy will be running a different system, one that relies more on the run game. Now, I don't know how great the Dallas Cowboys defense is. They were good 2 years ago. Last year, not so much, specifically towards the end of the season. So what I want to do now is break down game by game the entire Dallas Cowboys schedule, which games I think they're going to win and which games I think they're going to lose. And I came to the conclusion that I think they're going to go 9-7. And just like I said in my prediction video, I think they're going to go 9-7, and I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win the division. Now, it's not just because of the coronavirus thing, where Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz, they already have a relationship there. They know what system they're running. There's some new guys in Philly, so I think they have to work some things out, specifically in the receiving core as well. I just like Philly's roster more than Dallas, and again, I know what Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz are going to do, and I think Carson Wentz is better than Dak Prescott, like I mentioned time and time again. So let's get right into it. Here we go. Week 1. The Dallas Cowboys play the Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles. Many Cowboys fans have just pegged this as an easy win. I think they're going to lose this game. I seriously do. I think the Rams are going to have some sort of a bounce-back season now. I think last year's team was tough to coach. A lot of guys were coming in and out, plus the Super Bowl hangover. Now, like I predicted, I don't think the Rams are going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to do something pretty much exactly similar to the last season, which is, again, go 9-7, 10-6 in that range. If they were another division, I would say that they have the capabilities of winning a division. Just that NFC West division with Seattle, who I think is going to go to the Super Bowl, San Francisco, who just went to a Super Bowl, Arizona, who's on the rise. The Rams really appear to be the third or fourth best team in that division. That's how good it is. And the Rams are still a really good team. They're still a 9-7 football team, in my opinion. 9 wins in that division is hard. I think the Rams win that game. So that's one loss for the Cowboys already. Now they play the Falcons at home. That's a win. 100% the Cowboys, week 2, will beat the Atlanta Falcons. Week 3, the Seattle Seahawks versus the Dallas Cowboys. That's the Seahawks in Seattle. So far, I have one win against the Falcons week 2, and I have them losing week 1 and week 3 against the Rams and the Seahawks. Then they have the Browns week 4. Now, this is an interesting one. It's one of those toss-up games that there are a lot of in this schedule. I'm going to give the edge to the Browns because I do like Kevin Stefanski and what he's doing. I really do believe that. Now, both of these teams are in a similar situation where they have the same quarterback from last year, but a new head coach. Not that I trust Kevin Stefanski more than Mike McCarthy, but again, like I've talked about this before, the talent alone on the Cleveland Browns is a Super Bowl contending team. If Kevin Stefanski can just coach better than, Freddie Kitchens did last year, and I can promise you he'll do that. Again, I think Baker Mayfield has a bounce back year, and I think they'll be good early more than even late. So I have the Browns winning that game. So right now, I have the Dallas Cowboys starting 1-3. 1-3. And I think that's pretty realistic. To lose to the Rams, the Seahawks, and then the Browns. I think that's pretty realistic with 2 of those games on the road, 2 at home. Next up is the Giants. They'll obviously beat the Giants. Daniel Jones and Joe Judge are in a new relationship here, and I don't think that, I love Saquon Barkley, who I'll talk about in my top 10 running back list at the end of the episode. There's just not enough there with the Giants. Again, I like Danny Dimes. I think he's actually really good. I think he's criminally underrated as a quarterback. Everyone called him a bust, immediately when he was drafted, because he was drafted so high, I think with the 6th overall pick. All he's done is make plays for the for the Giants. And he's one of those guys that looks like he could develop into a quarterback that elevates his team. I really do believe that. But again, I don't think they have enough to beat the Dallas Cowboys, who do have a pretty talented roster. So that's going to be a W for the Cowboys. Next up is the Arizona Cardinals. Again, the Cardinals at home, this is a night game. This is a close one. This is a toss-up game, in my opinion, but I am going to give it to the Cardinals. Again, the NFC West is the best division in football by a mile, in my opinion. The Cardinals are going to be really good next year. Again, a lot of people have pegged Kyler Murray as that next boom guy, the guy who's going to go from his first year to second year and winning the MVP. So I'm going to give that to the Cardinals. I know it's in Jerry World, and that's going to be a night game. That's going to be so much fun to watch, Cardinals-Cowboys. I'm going to give the edge to the Cardinals here because I don't trust the Dallas Cowboys defense. Next up is a pretty relatively softer part of their schedule. Now they go to Washington. That's going to be an easy win for the Dallas Cowboys. Then they have the Eagles in Philadelphia. I'm going to give that one to Philadelphia. And then the Steelers and the Vikings are the next two games after that. After they play, I think they're going to win in Washington and then lose in Philadelphia. So again, still a losing record at this point in stage for the Dallas Cowboys. I think they're going to go on a little bit of a run here. In the middle part of the season in November, I see the Cowboys winning 3 games in a row against the Steelers in Jerry World, against the Vikings in Minnesota, and then against Washington again, this time at home. I think there's going to be a 3-game winning streak for them. I think November is going to be the Cowboys' month. Give Mike McCarthy a little bit of time with Dak Prescott to really develop and really implement his system. About halfway through the season in November, they're going to look a lot better there. I think that's what's going to happen towards the middle to end part of the season. Again, those 3 games right in November versus the Steelers, Vikings, Redskins, I think are going to be 3 straight wins. Next up, there's the Ravens in Baltimore. The Cowboys are not beating the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, specifically in December. Not a chance. I give that one to the Ravens. Then there's the Bengals. I think they'll win that game. And then the 49ers, Eagles again, and Giants. I think they'll lose to the 49ers, but I think they will beat the Philadelphia Eagles in Dallas, so that will split them down the middle with the Philadelphia Eagles for the season series. And then the last week of the year is against the Giants in New York. The Cowboys will win that one as well, which will put them in at 9 games. So, there's a lot of winnable games on this schedule, but I don't think I'm crazy when I say they're not going to win 11, 12 games. Again, some of these games that the Cowboy fans have just pegged as all automatic wins, the only ones that I've mentioned that are considered toss-up games where I think that the Cowboys would lose are against the Rams, against the Browns. And I think that both of those games are really tough for the Dallas Cowboys, specifically early on. Week 1 in Mike McCarthy's new system, you're on the road in Los Angeles. Sean McVay and Jared Goff looking for a bounce-back season. They will be better early than late. Teams with the same quarterback and coaches last year will be better on early than these teams that are trying to implement a new system. Again, no training camp, no OTAs, no preseason. It's going to be tougher for these teams with new players in the building, with new coaches in the building, and specifically also with this whole contract negotiation thing looming over the Cowboys' head. I don't think that's an easy win, and I think the Browns are going to be something next year. Also, you can argue the Cardinals game is a toss-up. I don't think they're going to win that one either. I really like Arizona. But then you could also go the other way and argue that they will lose to the Steelers and the Vikings in the middle part of the season. I don't think so. I trust the Cowboys to get their act together by that part of the season. Mike McCarthy will have that system implemented. Hopefully Dak Prescott knows, everything going on with the playbook and everything by then. So I think that'll be a good stretch of the season. Again, I expect the Cowboys to be better late than early because of the lack of continuity in a relationship with Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott. And of course, Cowboy ownership, even Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott will say, oh, we're good. We know everything already. We're perfect. We're all completely in sync. That's just not the case. Not to mention there's a lot of new players on the offensive side as well. CeeDee Lamb, he needs to get acclimated with Dak Prescott earlier rather than later. And with no preseason, no OTAs, that's going to take some time. Again, I think the Cowboys will be better later than earlier. Will they make the playoffs? I'm not sure. They will definitely be in the hunt. With an extra playoff team now, I'm leaning towards yes, the Cowboys will make the playoffs as maybe the last wild card. But I have Philly winning that division with Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson already having a relationship. Again, Carson Wentz is better, in my opinion, in every way than Dak Prescott at being an NFL quarterback besides, health issues, you could say. But I hope that Carson Wentz has that, put that behind him. Again, I have the Cowboys going 9-7. I don't think that's crazy. I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. Not yet. They need better players on the defense, and I think you need a couple years, or at least 1 year, of Mike McCarthy and the Dak Prescott relationship to see how it works. I think it'll work at some level. Again, 9-7 for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think I'm crazy on that. Let me know what you think. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side of it, Cam Newton was talking about on some sort of show, podcast, internet clip with Odell Beckham and Victor Cruz, talking about how he feels replacing Tom Brady and what he thinks he can bring to the Patriots offense. We're going to talk about that clip and what I think he can bring to the Patriots offense and why he's the perfect quarterback to potentially replace Tom Brady. I'll get into that right after this break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am Alex Masfer. Thank you so much for listening throughout the episodes recently. We really do appreciate it. I just finished talking about, Dak Prescott, the Dallas Cowboys, continuing the conversation about the contract negotiations, and I just did kind of a breakdown on where I believe the Dallas Cowboys stand this year in regards to their schedule. Again, I have them going 9-7, second in their division behind the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know that comes as a surprise to some Cowboy fans, but I just don't think they are a Super Bowl team like some people have pegged them to be. I think Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott need, some continuity, a relationship, some experience together, just something. Again, I think the Cowboys will be better late than early. I think they'll get their stuff together later once they have some experience with this new system they're running. And I think Zeke will also have a big year, which is what I forgot to mention last segment. Now I want to switch gears to the New England Patriots, and I've talked about Cam Newton and the Patriots at length, so I am going to, kind of restate my points on why I believe it will work at some point. But something I want to talk about of why Cam Newton to the Patriots makes a lot of sense. Just not because of a play standpoint, which is what I'll get into in this segment, but from a personality standpoint. Is what he kind of said in this clip that was circulating around the internet. I think he was on somebody's podcast. Don't quote me on that, but it was some internet video. He was with Victor Cruz and Odell Beckham Jr., and Cam Newton was talking about, coming up behind Tom Brady, and he pretty much just said, that's great, he's great, I'm paraphrasing here, he said, that's great, he's great, everything he's done obviously needs no introduction, something like that. But they've never had somebody like me before, is what he says, is what he's saying. Now, some people were like, oh my God, you're following up Tom Brady, you can't speak like that. And I think it's perfect. I think one of the reasons why I think this is a perfect situation for Cam and why the New England Patriots might have landed their perfect follow-up quarterback for Tom Brady is because Cam Newton isn't afraid of this. He's not afraid of following up the greatest football player of all time, the greatest quarterback of all time, and trying to continue the greatest dynasty potentially in sports history. He's not afraid of it. Now, when it comes to following up an act, everyone always wants to look for a replacement of their quarterback once they get up there. Jordan Love is eventually Aaron Rodgers' replacement. Somebody will be Drew Brees' replacement. Somebody will be Big Ben's replacement. And somebody right now is going to be Tom Brady's replacement, Cam Newton. Now, if you ask me, there's more pressure on the guy following the all-time great than it is to the person who's following the guy who's following the all-time great. Does that make any sense? So usually what happens in the NFL is the guy who they get as a replacement for the all-time great guy or the quarterback who's been there forever, usually that guy doesn't end up working and they get a guy in the draft years later or even a year later, and that guy in the middle is considered some sort of stopgap. Now, there is a lot less pressure, usually, on the guy following the stopgap than it is the guy following the all-time great, obviously, or the longtime quarterback, for obvious reasons. But Cam Newton is no stopgap, in my opinion. For example, Cam Newton's former team, the Carolina Panthers. I like Matt Rule a lot, like Joe Brady a lot. Wouldn't surprise me if he's a head coach soon, if the offense in Carolina does anything that it, has the potential to do. Teddy Bridgewater is replacing Cam Newton, who for Carolina has been the quarterback forever. Is Teddy Bridgewater the future there? Maybe, maybe not. If the Panthers don't do well this year, though, if they go 5-11, 4-12, even 6-10, could they target a guy like a Justin Fields? 100%. But who is the pressure on? Teddy Bridgewater now, in his Carolina career, is always going to be compared to Cam Newton and how he did there. And who knows, can Teddy Bridgewater live up to that? Can Teddy Bridgewater live up to the legacy that Cam Newton left behind in, Carolina? Now, could he? Maybe, maybe not. But is Teddy Bridgewater afraid of that moment? Is he big enough for that moment? Cam Newton, for his tenure as the New England Patriot quarterback, unfortunately will probably be compared to a lot of Tom Brady stuff, which he does not deserve because there's no matching what Tom Brady did at all. Cam Newton's a completely different quarterback. He's not going to put up the same stats. He's not going to put up the same championships. Who knows if he'll even be there a similar duration amount of time. He won't be there 20 years. Who knows if Cam Newton will even be there past this year. But my point is that Cam is big enough for that moment. He's big enough for that spotlight. He's big enough for that pressure because he's faced pressure like that before. Now, he, at Florida, was supposed to be Tim Tebow's replacement and future. Obviously didn't work out that way, so he was already welcoming that pressure since college. Then went to JUCO, then Auburn won the national championship. Then the number 1 overall pick, he was big enough for that spotlight. Big enough for the Heisman at Auburn. Big enough for the number 1 pick to Carolina. Big enough for to be the Carolina Panthers' really only really good player for a long time. Big enough to carry that franchise for about the first 5 years of his career. Big enough to have an MVP season, be a complete global icon ever since 2015, fashion, pop culture-wise, also football-wise, go to a Super Bowl, win an MVP, big enough for the Super Bowl stage, and has been a pretty good quarterback since the 2015 season. Again, Cam Newton's always been big enough for the moment. He is a big person, literally, and he's a big personality, which is why he makes sense to do this. This isn't replacing Tom Brady with some guy who's going to shrink. Like, I think Jarrett Stidham was leading the Patriots to be. So, leading them on that he was going to do that. Now, a lot of people said, and this is one I also want to get into quickly, the Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham, sort of relationship and proposition here. I want to give you almost a theory here. Now, this is assuming that Cam Newton doesn't necessarily work with the Patriots completely and they miss the playoffs, for example, and that this is just a one-year thing, or maybe Cam Newton does work this year and the Patriots don't pay up and he goes somewhere else like a Jacksonville, Chicago, somewhere else that would be looking for a quarterback next offseason. The Patriots, ever since Tom Brady left, were adamant, 100%, and it was coming out of reports from Foxborough, from the national media, the Boston Herald, the Boston Globe, everything. ESPN, Fox Sports 1, all that stuff. Jarrett Stidham is the guy here in New England. Bill Belichick loves Stidham. They would call him Stid. He was the first guy in, last one out, working out, posting hype videos about Stidham. Everybody assumed, okay, well, the Patriots are really going to roll with Stidham, specifically after they passed on Andy Dalton. And at that point, we were also all led to believe that they were passing on Cam Newton, because again, Cam Newton had been, just sitting there and waiting forever. He was released, I think, right after? No, before the draft. Cam Newton was cut from the Panthers, quote unquote, before the draft. So he was sitting there for anybody to take. The Chargers, the Bears, the Patriots also at the time, all of them looking to potentially sign Cam Newton. None of them actually bought until, very end when, the Patriots swooped in like we all know and everything like that. So Cam Newton was sitting there. So at that time we were all led to believe that, okay, Stidham is actually the guy. That was about a 4 or 5 week period, minimally, probably more like a 6 or 7 or even 8 week period, almost a 2-month span, where Jarrett Stidham looked like the future of the New England Patriots. He was the guy succeeding Tom Brady. During that time, Stidham was working out in the building, most likely, in those Zoom meetings with Bill Belichick, with the starters, kind of taking command of the room, everything like that. So Bill Belichick had, let's say, a minimum of 5 weeks to see what Jarrett Stidham looked like as the starting quarterback of the New England Patriots, and he signed Cam Newton right after that 5-week period for nothing. Now, again, you can argue that it's a value deal, that it's just to bring in competition, and there are still some Patriot fans and some people that are still saying that despite the signing of Cam Newton, the Patriots really like Jarrett Stidham, really like his upside, really like his future, could be the potential future starting quarterback here. And it's also, you already know that this job isn't going to be handed to Cam Newton. It is going to be an open competition. I can tell you within 4 practices Cam Newton will win it, but it's going to be some sort of a competition, right? What if what I've been saying about the NFL, how it's a lot easier to replace the stopgap guys, it's a lot easier to succeed the stopgap guy than it is the all-time great, the long-time person. What if that moment was too big for Jarrett Stidham? Right? What if the Patriots realize, okay, following in Tom Brady's footsteps in just your second year in the NFL, and again, we have this great narrative that every quarterback's got to be ready week 1, year 1, but that's not how the NFL has been working for years and years. It's only till recently that guys have been starting week 1 and really succeeding, and that's why we see a lot of busts in the NFL. Guys aren't getting the time to sit and develop. What if they want to give, Jared Stidham the Jimmy Garoppolo treatment? Jimmy Garoppolo sat for 3-4 years in New England? And it's not like that he couldn't play after his 3-4 years, but you're telling me that sitting, that learning, that watching of Tom Brady, Bill Belichick didn't help him in San Francisco? Again, there's no rush with the future starting quarterback thing. There's no rush for it. You have all the time in the world, essentially, right, to make sure you get it right with this guy, make sure you develop him correctly. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they saw those 5 weeks of meetings, 5 weeks of workouts, and they were like, all right, Stidham is not ready for this. Stidham is not ready to be the starting quarterback of the Patriots, specifically after replacing Tom Brady. Again, Stidham is considered a no-name, has no track record, and there's a lot of pressure already on this situation of who's going to replace Tom Brady. Don't think he can do it. They don't think he can do it. Let's bring in a guy like Cam Newton, who is big enough for the moment, who will excite the fans, who will make some dynamic plays for just 1 or 2 seasons, and then hand it to Stidham. I'm really thinking about this. Do not be surprised. Do not be surprised. I won't be surprised by anything the Patriots do. Ever. Never again will I ever be surprised what the Patriots do. But what if Jared Stidham is still the future of the New England Patriots? And what if Cam Newton was brought in to be the stopgap? Now, this is kind of, segued into a different topic almost than I was originally talking about. But this theory just came to me. Because again, Cam Newton, as he's shown that quick internet video and on his Instagram and his personality and everything, again, not shy from this moment, knows he's replacing the GOAT, knows he's replacing Tom Brady, and talked about, I think the direct quote is, Coach McDaniels, you're going to call some stuff that you haven't been able to call before. Not taking a shot at Tom Brady, but just stating the obvious, stating a fact. Tom Brady isn't that most athletic, dynamic foot guy, athletic quarterback. Cam Newton is the opposite. Cam Newton is super athletic. He's a freak athlete. And there are some more dynamic plays you're going to be able to call. I'm not saying that, the offense of New England will be better than it was with Tom Brady there. It'll certainly, in my opinion, be more dynamic, be more exciting. I think there'll be more big plays. Will that translate to wins? Who the hell knows? Again, I have the Patriots winning that division because the AFC East is so bad usually. Again. But what if because if the Patriots really were like, oh my God, we need Cam Newton, we want Cam Newton here for the next 4 to 5 seasons, because again, Cam Newton's only 30-31. We want Cam Newton here for the long-term future, definite replacement, quarterback of the future. Has anybody in front of the Patriots building, have we seen reports that we think Cam's the future? We think Cam is here for the long haul. We think Cam is here for the next 6 or 7 seasons. No, there's been more reports about Stidham being the long-term future than there has about Cam, even since the Cam Newton signing. And again, at the beginning, we were all led to believe that the Patriots were uninterested in Cam, because at that point in time, I really believe that Cam Newton was not on their radar, that they really believed in Jared Stidham. And again, it's so much easier to replace the stopgap than it is the actual guy, the long-term answer that's been there forever. We've seen it. We know how this works, and usually what happens, this is what happens anyway, folks. When a guy who's been there forever retires, in the middle, again, look at the Denver Broncos. Here's a perfect example of the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos had Peyton Manning, right? Incredible, 100%, super good guy, retires, right? They then go to Trevor Siemian / Paxton Lynch. Paxton Lynch's expectation was to replace Peyton Manning, correct? Yep. How did that work out? Terribly. Worked out for all 3 parties involved. Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, who was there for a little bit, I believe, and Paxton Lynch, right? Terrible. Now, a couple of years removed, Drew Lock is replacing the stopgap guys. Do we compare Drew Lock to everything that's been happening with Peyton Manning? Do we compare, Drew Lock is 5-1 or 4-1 as a starter. How does his numbers compare to Peyton Manning's first 5 games as a Denver Bronco? We don't do that because he's not replacing Peyton Manning, because he's replacing the mediocrity that's come before him in just those, 2 or 3 seasons? It's a lot easier to do that, folks, than it is to replace Peyton Manning. There would be a lot more pressure on Drew Lock if he was coming right after Peyton Manning, right after that Super Bowl, versus a couple years removed, couple stopgap guys. Now Drew Lock is just here to bring the Broncos back, right? Don't be surprised if that's what the New England Patriots are doing. I'm really starting to believe that. Don't be surprised if the New England Patriots are doing this for Stidham's value. That everyone has been saying, they signed in Cam, look how they've done Stidham dirty, he's not the guy anymore. No. This is a new theory I'm having now. To recap it. Stidham wasn't big enough for the moment. Think about this. Stidham wasn't big enough for the moment, right? 5 weeks here. 5 to 8 week period where they saw, okay, how does Stidham look as the starting quarterback in the New England Patriots? Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, they all came to the conclusion, he's not ready, he's not it, he doesn't have it yet, right? Let's bring in a stopgap guy. Who was the best stopgap guy available? Cam Newton. He was also available for the cheapest as well. He's going to be dynamic. We're going to run some cool plays. And don't forget, Stidham's also a mobile guy. Not as mobile as Cam Newton, but also not as slow as Tom Brady. He's a good mix in between. What if Stidham, and they're like, oh, we can bring in, Cam Newton here, run some more dynamic plays, the read option, bootleg, get the, extend the pocket. Stidham will have watched now, Tom Brady pocket passing style and Cam Newton athletic style. And then, 2 or 3 years down the line, Cam Newton's just a stopgap guy who's going to entertain the fans, be really good. And I think they'll actually go to the playoffs a couple times. Maybe let's say it's over the next 2 or 3 seasons. But Cam Newton isn't the future there, it's Jarrett Stidham. Don't be surprised at all. I think that theory's legit. Don't be surprised at all if Cam Newton is just a stopgap for Jarrett Stidham, and that's the Patriots' plan all along, and that's their expectation all along. But also don't be surprised if Cam Newton lights it up. Again, to recap quickly, I've talked about this at length. I didn't want to get into it again. I think Cam Newton's going to work at some level. If they're going to have a combination of 2015 and 2018 Cam Newton, high completion percentage, get the ball out quick, bootleg, extend the pocket sort of thing, let Cam be Cam, while at the same time keeping him off the dirt, don't let him get hit, and that short passing game, Cam can do wonders for the New England Patriots. But again, don't be surprised at all if this theory that I'm saying right now that just came to me is legit. Stidham's still the future there. Cam's a stopgap. Don't be surprised at all. All right, we're going to take another quick break. On the other side of it, we're going to switch to the NBA. Now, I've done this before, but I want to do it again. I've been doing some more research on all these NBA teams that I think are going to make it into the bubble. I have an updated playoff prediction, specifically with everything that's going on with the Lakers and some players who have dropped out and everything like that. I have a lot of upsets. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I think the hiatus has done some teams well, and I think the younger, more athletic teams are really going to thrive, and the deeper teams specifically are going to thrive in this NBA Orlando bubble. Again, everything is on the table when it comes to the bubble because of the long break. Teams will come back maybe looking like completely different teams. I'm going to do my NBA playoff predictions revisited on the other side of this break, so don't go anywhere.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I want to switch gears here for a minute. I just got finished talking about Cam Newton in a clip that was released of him talking about following in Tom Brady's footsteps and why I still believe Jarrett Stidham could be the future in New England. I want to switch gears now to the NBA. I want to do something I've already done before, which is predict the NBA playoffs. I did this a couple of weeks ago, but now that the bubble has officially kicked off and we have sort of a blueprint of what these teams are going to look like, bearing any more, hopefully, injuries or cases, hopefully none of the above, I want to redo my playoff bracket, my playoff predictions here. I have some more upsets now that I also know that some teams are healthier than they were already than they were at the end of the break, and who knew how they were going to be when they came back. Some teams are at full strength now, so I want to redo these playoff predictions, and we'll do them relatively quickly. Now, I've already mentioned on this show a little bit of a spoiler alert. I don't have the Lakers winning the championship anymore. like I did the first time, due to everything that happened with Avery Bradley, and then also Rajon Rondo as well. I think they lost their 2 best defensive guards. So I will talk about that as well. But let's just get right into it. Let's start off with the Eastern Conference, and then we'll do the Western Conference after that. So in the East, the Bucks are probably going to play the Magic. I don't think that the Wizards are going to be making the playoffs, even though they were invited to the bubble and everything like that. I don't think they'll make it. I think the Magic will be still the 8th seed. So at number 1 is obviously the Milwaukee Bucks, and I think that'll stay the same as well. I pretty much think in the East that all the standings are going to stay relatively the same. So let's just get right into it. The Bucks and the Magic, I think the Bucks are going to win in 4. I think that's an easy sweep for me. Giannis, I think now that the bubble does not qualify for MVP, I still think LeBron James is going to win it, but Giannis has a bigger case now than he ever has, specifically now that the bubble isn't involved. In my opinion, I thought that the regular season part of the bubble was going to still work, including the play-in tournament, which is why I thought LeBron was going to tear it up in the bubble, maybe even more so than Giannis, which is why I gave the nod to LeBron. But now that anything in the bubble, including those last finish up of the quote-unquote regular season for the both East and West, that's not counting towards the MVP. So it's everything before the hiatus. That makes it lean more towards in Giannis' favor, even though I still want to bet on LeBron to win Most Valuable Player this year. But anyway, I think the Bucks are going to sweep the Magic relatively easily. Next up is Raptors-Nets. Again, you can swap out the Nets and Magic for 7 and 8. Obviously, the Nets are dealing with a ton of injuries, and I don't think Spencer Dinwiddie is playing, which is something that had before. In my last episode, I had the Nets, not getting swept. Having them, win a game or maybe even 2 against the Raptors, because I really do believe in Spencer Dinwiddie, and I think he's really good. Not anymore. I have the Raptors sweeping, just because there's too much going on with the Nets, man. Everything with Kyrie, Kevin Durant's obviously not playing, Kyrie's not playing, Spencer Dinwiddie's not playing. Just a lot of stuff going on with them. They're signing guys like Jamal Crawford. I'm so happy he's back in the league, by the way. Jay Smooth, one of the best players, most fun players to watch. So yeah, but I think they're going to get swept now. There's just too much going on with the Nets, too many injuries, too much, just negative stuff going on with them. So I have them getting swept now by the Raptors before I think I had them winning a game or maybe even 2. Next up is Celtics-Sixers. Now, the Sixers could slide up depending on what the Indiana Pacers do. I have them staying there because I believe in what the Pacers are doing, and also now more recent reports are that Victor Oladipo is going to try to give it a shot to play for the Indiana Pacers. So I was tempted to switch the Pacers and 76ers, bringing the Pacers down, 76ers up. I'm going to leave it how it is because Oladipo might be playing, but if Oladipo doesn't play, I think they'll slide up. But if Oladipo does play, I think the standings will stay where they are. I have the Celtics winning in 6. Now, initially I had the Celtics winning in 5. I'm starting to believe a little bit more in the Sixers because they're healthy. And also, Ben Simmons is more intriguing to me now. There's been some videos of him playing power forward, and Brett Brown has said he's playing exclusively him as power forward. So they're going to use him in a different role. Now, will that make him better than what he was doing before the break? Not necessarily, but it is going to shake up how the 76ers play. Not to mention they're going to be healthy. Ben Simmons wasn't, playing at the end of the hiatus. He's back now. Everyone seems to be 100% for Philly, which is a good thing, which is why I have them now only losing in 6 instead of 5. Now, I think it could go closer if they could bump up and play a different team. I just think the Celtics are a bad matchup for them. They're athletic, they're fast, and they have really, really, really good guard play, something that the Sixers don't have, and they have a lot of shooting, another thing the Sixers don't have. The only thing that could cause the Celtics problems is their lack of interior defense when they have guys like Joel Embiid, and specifically Ben Simmons if he's playing a power forward role, Al Horford as well. Could be really fun to see, just kind of old school basketball from Philly. I'm still going to give the tip of the cap to the Celtics in 6 instead of 5 in the previous predictions I did. So again, Celtics in 6 in the first round against the 76ers. Next up is Heat Pacers. Now, there's a little bit of a rivalry here because TJ Warren and Jimmy Butler obviously got into it. I'm really high on the Heat now going into the bubble. In my previous video, I only had them going to the second round. You'll see that's actually farther now because of all the injuries they were dealing with. Tyler Hero was still unclear what he was going to do. So same with Myers Leonard and a couple other guys like Goran Dragic were dealing with injury. They're all healthy. They're all really good, and they're all back. One of the things the Heat have to their advantage is actually the lack of fans. Now, the Heat are a really, really good home team, don't get me wrong. But the Heat are also one of the youngest teams in this playoffs. Yes, they have veterans like Dragic and Jimmy Butler. They also have really, really young guys who are just breaking out this year. Guys like Duncan Robinson, guys like Tyler Hero, guys like Kendrick Nunn, who knows how they would have performed in the big moment. So after giving it some more thought, I think the Heat are actually going to be a little bit better in the bubble than they were towards the end of the regular season. And a Duncan Robinson quote really struck me. Duncan Robinson had a funny quote saying, "I'm used to playing in empty stadiums coming from D3 to now, so maybe that'll benefit me." Well, he's quite literally right. He's kind of more used to it. The Heat are a gym team. They are a hard-working gym team, practice hard team. And I think that the lack of fans and this more of a scrimmage type, practice type feel will do the Heat well. And I also think conditioning is going to be a big factor in this. And I think the Heat are going to be the best conditioned team in the league, as they usually are every year. And they're also one of the deepest teams now that everybody's healthy. They go almost 11 deep if you count Kelly Olynyk. So I have the Heat winning in 5 against the Pacers. And I actually going to have a pretty big upset in the second round here. Heat Bucks. Call me crazy. I think the Bucks get knocked in the second round. Now, initially, I had the Bucks making it to the conference finals, and I had the Bucks beating the Heat in 6. Now that I know that the Heat are healthy, the Heat are undefeated against the Milwaukee Bucks this year. They have guys that can guard Giannis Antetokounmpo. As Bam Adebayo has shown, he is the Giannis stopper if there is one in the league. It's Bam Adebayo. All the shooting surrounding. The empty stadiums, the big moments for these young players are going to do bad. They tend to do better in practice than games. As someone who follows the Heat closely, that's something that people say, that these young guys are really good in practice, don't show up necessarily in the games sometimes. Guys like Tyler Hero consistently, Kendrick Nunn consistently, Duncan Robinson consistently. I think Duncan Robinson is an X factor. I think he's going to be one of the best players in the bubble. I think the Heat are going to beat the Bucks in 7. Call me crazy. All the shooting. Bam Adebayo can guard Giannis. Jimmy Butler can guard Chris Middleton. They have guys that can switch around, switchability. They can really compete with the Bucks. They are undefeated against the Bucks this year. I think there's only 2 bad matchups for the Milwaukee Bucks in the East, the Celtics and the Heat. I think they face the Heat in the second round. In my previous prediction video, I had the Celtics beating them in the conference finals. I think the Heat are going to beat the Bucks. Call me crazy. Let me know what you think. And then Celtics Raptors, I'm going to give the Celtics in 6. I'm really high on the Celtics right now. Everybody's healthy, young, athletic, can score. All of their best players are 3-level scorers. A 3-level scorer is, mid-range game, long range, and also like inside the paint. Tatum, Brown, Kemba, and Gordon Hayward can all do that. They're one of the most versatile teams in the league. They're going to take care of the Raptors in 6. If previously I had 7, I think it's 6 now. So now we get to the Eastern Conference Finals, where it's Heat Celtics. The Heat's only bad matchup, relatively. They are undefeated against the top teams in the East. The Raptors, the Sixers, and the Bucks. Undefeated. They have not beaten the Boston Celtics yet. The Celtics are going to take care of the Heat, and I think pretty handily too. I think the Celtics in 5 or 6 would beat the Heat. Again, the Heat match up against teams that are bigger. The Sixers, the Raptors, the Bucks. They have big guys, Bam Adebayo specifically, and the shooting. Can they deal with all of these athletic players that the Celtics have, Tatum, Brown, Kemba? No. They don't have a guy that can guard Kemba consistently, I think. And I think Jimmy Butler would do a decent job against Jason Tatum, but I think he's an absolute monster. And I don't know who the hell is guarding Jaylen Brown. And Jaylen Brown has torched the Heat in the 2 matchups that we've seen between the Celtics and the Heat. Now, I think it's going to be Celtics in 6, and I think they get to the championship. The Celtics were my dark horse team to win the championship. Now I think they're my favorite to come out of the East. I think they're going to come out of the East 100% now. Celtics in the bubble, young, athletic, also deep. Remember, I said this. The deep teams are going to be rewarded here. Teams like the Heat, teams like the Celtics, teams like the Clippers, who I will get into as well. Those 3 teams, in my opinion, are the 3 deepest teams in the league, and I think they will be rewarded for that. Again, Heat-Celtics conference finals, but the Celtics are going to beat the Heat pretty handedly, I believe. Now let's switch off to the West. In the first round, I have Lakers-Pelicans. I'm going to keep that the same. Zion Williamson has stepped away from the bubble because of a family matter. I hope everything's okay with that. I'm assuming he's going to be back in time to play. If Zion Williamson plays, guys, I'm telling you the Pelicans are going to make the playoffs. Everybody wants them in, ESPN, all the major networks, and the NBA wants them in as well. Again, the league will only go as far as the stars take them, specifically in this bubble. Lakers, Pelicans first round. Lakers are going to win in 5. I think I had it earlier that the Lakers were going to sweep them. I really do believe that the Pelicans will actually win a game now. Lakers will beat the Pelicans in 5, maybe even 6 with all the injuries going on. They could push the series to 6, but I'm going to have the Lakers in the first round taking that W. Second round matchup would be Clippers-Mavericks. Again, tough series. The Mavericks are really good, man. They could sneak a couple of wins in there. I'm going to have to give it to the Clippers, though, in 6. Again, I think Luka Doncic could carry them to a win or 2, but the Clippers are the deepest team in the league. They are coming in at number 6. They will win win in 6 in the first round against the Mavericks, not number 6. They will win in 6 and make it on to the second round. Number 3, the third matchup will be the Nuggets versus the Rockets. Really, really close, man. I'm going to give it the Rockets in 7 because I think the Nuggets are still one piece away, and James Harden looks like he's in really good shape. To be fair, so does Jokic. Again, the league wants James Harden to kind of advance a little bit here. They want to see more Harden, more Westbrook, and I think they're going to really be proven to try to take out this narrative. I'm giving it to the Rockets in 7 games. And lastly, in the first round of the West, Jazz Thunder. Thunder in 7, man. I don't trust the relationship between Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, and Bogdanovic is not playing. Thunder in 7. Chris Paul will get them to a couple wins. Again, one of the more deeper teams in the league, Oklahoma City Thunder. Deep teams will be rewarded in this bubble. If there's anything you take away from this, deep teams will be rewarded. All right, next up in the second round, Lakers Thunder. I have Lakers in 6. Again, the poor guard defensive play for the Lakers is why I have it being so close. Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will tear their defensive guards, whoever they throw at them for the Lakers, apart. But I think AD and LeBron will just be way, way too much for the Lakers to handle. Now, if the Lakers were playing the Rockets, I would be tempted to say Rockets, but they're playing the Thunder in this scenario. Again, I have the Lakers beating the Thunder in about 6 games. Then Clippers-Rockets. I think the Clippers defense is too much to match up for the Rockets. Unlike the Lakers, they have really good guard defensive play, and the only 2 really, really good players for the Rockets are guards, obviously. I think it'll be close. I have Clippers in 6. I think the Rockets will get a game or 2 because James Harden will go off. So again, we get to the conference finals in the West, the same as it was my first prediction video, Lakers-Clippers. I had Lakers in 7 the first time. I'm switching it. I want to say Clippers in 6. I'm going to say Clippers in 7 because I think LeBron is magical. He's going to get it to 7. I don't know how. Him and AD will get it to 7, even though the rosters are severely outmatched. I've talked about this before. I've had a whole segment on this of how the Clippers are a terrible matchup for the Lakers because of how good their guard play is and how poor the Lakers' defensive guard play is. Again, who's guarding Paul George? Who's guarding Kawhi Leonard? Who's guarding Lou Williams? Who's guarding Montrezl Harrell when he comes back into the bubble? A lot of stuff. Again, Clippers in 7 now. Don't be surprised if it's 6 or even earlier. I think the Clippers are the deepest team in the league. Clippers-Celtics is going to be the finals. I'm predicting this. Clippers-Celtics. A lot of upsets in the bubble. Again, the deep teams are going to be rewarded. I'm telling you, it's going to be crazy. Everything is on the table when it comes to the Orlando bubble. They're playing in empty gyms, no fans, no home and away, more like practice, more like a scrimmage. Who's going to be conditioned? Who's not? Who's going to be in a rhythm? Who's not? If you get hot in the bubble for, let's say, a 2-week span, that's like the entirety of the season. All right. So that could really be an X factor here as well. Again, Clippers, Celtics. I have the Clippers in about 6. I'm going to push it to 7 because I really do believe in Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics. It's going to be so much fun to see. Celtics, Clippers in 6 or 7. I think Kawhi is going to win a championship with a third different team. And he's going to be a back-to-back NBA champion. People are really going to start talking about Kawhi as the best player in the league, potentially, as he is one of them. Clippers are going to get the championship, in my opinion. No more load management. Doc Rivers is the head coach. Just the deepest team in the league. They were built for this. Built for the playoffs. Built for the bubble. More than any other team in the league with how deep they are, in my opinion. Minimal distractions. No one's opting out. No one, unfortunate injuries like Rondo had with the Lakers. Everything is in the favor of the Clippers right now, and I've done a complete 180. I think they're going to beat the Lakers, and I think they're going to be NBA champions. All right, one more quick break, and then on the other side of it, top 10 NFL running backs, what I've been hinting at all episode. You don't want to miss it. Top 10 NFL running back list coming back right after this break. Stick around.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network for one quick final segment here. Again, I'm going to be doing my top 10 running backs in the entire NFL. And just a quick word on running backs. I think they're undervalued now. I think a solid run game, specifically for a young quarterback, is everything. I think if you can get a young quarterback, a good running game, a good defense, that might even be better than getting him a top wide receiver. Seriously, or an offensive coach. I really do believe that. Now, I know running backs' lifespan isn't as long as a quarterback or even a wide receiver, but I still believe if you have a really, really, really good running back as one of your offensive weapons, you could be one of the best offenses in the league. Specifically, if they are a dual threat running back, one that can catch out of the backfield as well, one that does more than just run the ball in between the tackles north and south, which is what a lot of these guys on this list do, which is why I overvalue the running back position more than others. Some people are really low on the running back position. I am higher on it. Personally, let's get right into it. Number 10, Joe Mixon, Cincinnati Bengals. Now, there were a ton of other guys I could have put on this list at number 10. I think Joe Mixon's going to have a big year because Joe Burrow is used to having a really good receiving back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I think will be a superstar with the Chiefs, just not a top 10 running back his rookie year. Again, Joe Mixon will be really, really good for the Bengals this season. I think he's a really underrated running back, can do everything, pass catch, like I was just talking about. And Joe Burrow likes to throw to his backs. Don't be surprised if Joe Mixon is one of his favorite offensive weapons, and I think the Bengals have a pretty good offense, just not a pretty good record. Again, number 10, Joe Mixon, Cincinnati Bengals. Number 9, Aaron Jones, Green Bay Packers. All right, he's underrated, man. I think he led all running backs in touchdowns last season and didn't even make the Pro Bowl. He's underrated because he plays with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Still one of the best running backs in the league. I have him coming in at number 9. My only worry for him is his workload is a lot. He's like the only running back on the team. Not anymore. They obviously got that kid out of BC. I'm blanking on his name right now, who's a power back, really good, one of the best backs in the draft, according to a lot of people. Again, Aaron Jones, number 9, Green Bay Packers. He's underrated because he plays with Aaron Rodgers. Don't be fooled. He's one of the best backs in the league. I have him at top 10, number 9, Aaron Jones. Number 8, Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns. Again, I talked about Cleveland at length. They have 2 good backs, 2 good tight ends, 2 good receivers. Maybe one of the best offensive weapons and the most underrated offensive weapons of that team is Nick Chubb. One of the best backs in the league. I think he was up there. I think top 3 in rushing yards last season. Really good. Nick Chubb, awesome back. Low-key the best weapon on the Cleveland Browns offense. I love Jarvis Landry. I love Odell Beckham Jr. Love Austin Hooper. I love everybody. They're 2 good tight ends. Like I keep mentioning, Nick Chubb is low-key their best offensive weapon, though. Seriously, he is one of the best backs in the league. I put him at number 8, but you could really argue that he's higher. Nick Chubb, number 8, one of the best offensive weapons in the league, maybe the best offensive weapon in Cleveland. Number 7, Dalvin Cook. He's really underrated, man. He is like the best player on the Vikings offensively. He's better than Adam Thielen, better than Kirk Cousins. Again, Dalvin Cook is the best player offensively for the Minnesota Vikings. Really good. Can do it all. Pass catching, running north and south, east and west. Also a threat out of the backfield. Receiving game wise, like I just mentioned. Number 7, Dalvin Cook, really underrated. Get him a new deal, Minnesota. You need him. Like, don't fool yourself, Minnesota Vikings. You actually need him to be really good after losing Stephon Diggs. Kirk Cousins can't carry you unless he's got a good system around him. Like I keep mentioning with guys like him, Dak, Jimmy G. Kirk Cousins fits into that category. He needs players around him. He needs Dalvin Cook. Get him a new deal. He deserves it. 6, Mark Ingram. Maybe a part of the best run game in the league. Him and Lamar Jackson are incredible together. His workload will be even less last year, which will hopefully make his, lifespan a little bit longer NFL career-wise. They obviously got J.K. Dobbins. If he can lighten the load for Mark Ingram, that would be great. He's coming in at number 6 for me. Really good. One of the best veteran backs in the league. Love Mark Ingram coming in at number 6. Number 5, Alvin Kamara, one of the best receiving backs in the league. Really good for the New Orleans Saints. Was a kind of, I don't know if he had necessarily a down year last year. He just wasn't talked about as much. I think he's one of the best offensive players in the league. Multi-threat type guy. Really good. Love everything about Alvin Kamara. And he's not just a product of Drew Brees. Like, I think Michael Thomas is a really, really good receiver, but he's almost a little bit of a product of Drew Brees, and they're kind of, like I talked about in my top 10 wide receiver list. I don't know if he put up the same numbers without Drew Brees. I think Alvin Kamara would still put up similar numbers without Drew Brees, both running and pass catching wise. He's such a reliable guy, and the offensive weapon system, really good. Sean Payton's favorite toy to play with besides maybe Taysom Hill. So Alvin Kamara coming in at number 5. Number 4, the guy who just got a big deal, Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans. He's the best north and south back in the league. One of the reasons why he's not number, top 3 for me, specifically is just because of, he's only been good for about the last 19 games. he's been good for the past year and a half. No shot at him. I talked about it in my last episode. I don't think they're lightning in a bottle. I really do believe that they're going to continue to be really good. I trust Derrick Henry to continue to be really good. It's just Ryan Tannehill I'm nervous about. Again, I really do believe that Derrick Henry will continue to be good. One of the best power backs he is the best power back in the league. He's an absolute freak of nature, 6'3", like 240 something, ridiculous. Derrick Henry, number 4. Number 3, Saquon Barkley. For the New York Giants. He's their entire offense. I like Daniel Jones a lot. I actually do believe he has the potential to be a quarterback that elevates players and is not a product of their system. But Saquon Barkley can't hurt. He played hurt last season and was hurt a lot of it, which is what made Daniel Jones really shine out or stick out. He's still the best player on that team. Saquon Barkley is absolutely incredible. Have a bounce back year this year if he can stay healthy. The Giants got to be careful. They got to, not give him the ball too much. You don't want to run him into the ground before your quarterback just gets good. Who knows if Joe Judge can coach or anything like that, but Saquon Barkley, definitely a top 3 back. Also great out of the pass game as well. Ezekiel Elliott comes in at number 2. I know the only knock on him is that he's also, you can consider him that he wouldn't be as good without the offensive line. I still think Zeke's one of the best vision backs in the league. He finds the hole and he hits the hole and he gets there really, really quick. He's got really good vision. Reminds me of what Le'Veon Bell did in Pittsburgh, being so patient. I love Ezekiel Elliott. Again, still one of the best backs in the league, coming in at number 2. I think he's top 2. Zeke is the best, hole finder, if that makes sense. Vision for a running back. I think Zeke has maybe the best at that. Number 1 is maybe the most versatile and the best offensive player in the game. Christian McCaffrey is the best offensive weapon in the game. He's not only the best running back in the league, he's also one of the best receivers in the league, low-key. I really do believe Christian McCaffrey is the best offensive weapon in the league. Him and Matt Rule and Joe Brady, oh my God, that coaching, that offensive creative genius, the things they're going to do with Christian McCaffrey next year, he might have over 1.5 thousand yards combined. Seriously, catching and rushing. It could be absolutely incredible, could be special. Again, Teddy Bridgewater's a really good distributor of the football. A lot of that distribution is going to be going right to Christian McCaffrey's hands. So much fun to watch. Maybe my favorite non-quarterback to watch in the league. Christian McCaffrey coming in number 1. Best running back in the league. And I honestly would categorize him as a top 15 wide receiver in the league as well. Number 1 offensive weapon, and I don't think it's close. Christian McCaffrey, the number 1 running back in the league. Number 1 offensive weapon. Absolutely incredible. So much fun to watch. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast. Again, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave us a 5-star review, and follow us on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and I will see you all in the next one.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.